Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show also up on Anchor. If you want to contact the show, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is your Man United versus Liverpool match reaction. No, it isn't. This is your Glazers out protest reaction. Joining me, Wayne. How are you, my man?
How's it going, Noel? How's things?
Good. Disappointed, no doubt. Could have been potentially crowned champions today, but of course, as usual, United find a way to halt that. Also joining me, one of the OGs on the show at this stage, always joining me with those beautiful Mercedes headsets. How are we doing, Darren?
You know what's happening, pal? Hey, Wayne, all good, buddy?
Good.
How's it going?
Good. Lads, where do we begin with this? This is just an absolute madness. Stewards getting smacked around, opening gates, fans invading stadium. You know what I mean? Roy Keane and Graham Souness nearly loafing a bottle in the gantry. Flares being thrown in, banners being burnt, place getting tore asunder at times. Kind of probably a little bit too far to get your owners out, really. Darren, give us a bit of context and a bit of history to this. The Glazers, I was speaking off air with you beforehand, and I was saying billionaires don't become billionaires by chance unless you're Man City's owners or unless you win the lotto or something like that. So you have to be ruthless in business. But when you look at how much money they've taken out of the club being there 16 years, it equates to about 5% of revenue every year if you average it out. And to me, 5% seems like not too big a stretch, really, in terms of what you would expect as an owner and a return on your investment. If I asked you to invest in a product today with me, and I told you you're going to get 5% back in your return, you'd probably kick me out the door and say, take a hike.
Yeah, 100%.
Give me some context.
I'd show you the door, pal, 100%.
Yeah, so before we get into the whole argument of everything that's going on and the uproar of the ESL that really was the fuse that lit the dynamite on this today. Give us context on the Glazers from a United point of view.
I suppose like they're kind of polarizing for United fans, you know. You've got this Glazer out and these the colours, you know, and stuff like that, the green and gold. But for me, I think United fans sometimes can be very short-sighted and forget what's happened under the Glazers. You know, we have been successful under the Glazers. We have won trophies and they have spent a hell of a lot of money. You know, they've invested heavily. Now, I know people will say it's the club's money. It is the club's money, but they own the club and they put a package in place to go and buy that club and they're running the club as a business. Like 5%, as you say, I wouldn't be interested in 5%. If you weren't coming at me with at least 25, I'll be telling you to close the door on your way out fairly sharply. So 5%, it's not the end of the world from my point of view, especially when you look at the amount of revenue that United are able to generate, you know, from merch, from match day tickets. You've got the TV rights. There's so many different avenues. Their sponsorship over the last couple of years, I'm wearing a United top at the minute. It's a training top. I've got Aon plastered on the front of it. We had DHL plastered on the front of our training jerseys before that. Like there's logos going absolutely everywhere. We've watch manufacturers, we've tires, we've a Man United wine. You know, like there's all of this. So the money they're taking in is colossal. But for me, like they've spent money. Like, you know, last year we brought in, like the last couple of years, you've had Maguire, you've had Wan-Bissaka, you've had Donny van de Beek. You know, you've had
Pogba, bringing Pogba back.
You've had Pogba. You've had lads coming in. You've had big wages for lads. Like David Hayes on 350 grand a week. He's now our sub-keeper. You know, Zlatan was on big bucks. Cavani's on big bucks. They've given younger lads from the academy. You know, the managers put them into the fray. But they've given them deals. Like Rashford's on big money. Greenwood's not maybe on the type of money we're looking at yet. Fred again was brought in, another 50 million purchase. Lindelof was brought in under Jose, 35 for boy. Like they've spent big money. And I think, to be honest, like United fans are forgetting that. And they're using this ESL as a little bit of a, you know, we can have another bite out of this Glazer apple, to be honest with you. But the scenes today, man, I have to be honest, like as a United fan, it just sickened me. Like it really genuinely, like I'm after been watching Sky there and I'm watching Gary Neville and I'm watching, you know, Keane is there with a little smug grin on his face. And I just want to give him a slap in the head. Keane's an absolute moron. You know, he always has been. He's always will be. He's a clown. He says stuff to get a reaction out of people. He knows exactly what he's saying. You know, he's trying to be what Eamon Dunphy was years ago, but he's doing it on Sky TV now. And he's not some sort of bleeding hard man. He's a dope, if you ask me. And I'm a United fan saying that, and I'm an Irish man, but I think he's an absolute clown. But listening to the lads try and normalise the situation, and Gary Neville saying, "Oh well, you know, it was a very peaceful protest." It wasn't, lads. I saw a video of a bloke picking up a bleeding camera and launching it, and the thing smashed when it hit the deck. You know, the scenes outside the front gate where they're battling with police, you know, and the fellas falling all over the ground. People watching them scenes all over the world, and our club is being desecrated by these absolute morons, and it's just not good enough. It's really, really not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I can understand fully the frustration, you know, in terms of the ownership at times. I can understand the frustration of the ESL and how it was laid out and how badly it was laid out, and the insult to the culture and the history and all that kind of stuff. But it's hard to condone violence, isn't it? And I know there was thousands upon thousands upon thousands. I mean, it was like a match day when you look at it. It was just thousands of people, and it did kick off. And it was, I don't think the Greater Manchester Police actually understood the feeling in the fan base and how motivated it was for change. But on the flip side of this, I mean, going in and kind of wrecking your stadium somewhat, that's only going to lead to more cost and more money having to be spent in fixing those things. Not that Old Trafford doesn't need fixing up anyway at this stage. And if you're doing that, that takes money away from potentially another player or whatever that you're going to want to bring in or whatever it is. So it's a kind of a catch-22. And those fans really, you know, they obviously don't understand the financial implications of running a business.
That pitch for any United fan is sacred. You know, the same way if I'm a Liverpool fan, you know, that pitch at Anfield is a sacred place. For United fans to kick in the fucking door, pardon me French, kick in the door and go and start trampling all over that bleeding pitch, you know, and destroying a pitch 2 hours before we're supposed to play our biggest rivals in the league, our biggest rivals in the world, and doing that and having this game, you know, cancelled or postponed for now. Like, it makes us look like an absolute laughing stock, to be honest with you, man. It really, really does.
Yeah, and I was also thinking, like, I mean, I remember back to when we were dealing with Gillette and Hicks. And I mean, you guys have never gone to the point nearly where you're on the steps of a court, nearly heading into administration and into oblivion, if you like. And I just remember with Gillette and Hicks, I was thinking about it today. When I seen what was going on today, I was thinking back to that time. And I was thinking personally as a Liverpool fan, not so much an upper tier host, I was thinking I could never run into Anfield and start ripping seats off the cop or throwing cameras around or wrecking. That place to me is the holy ground in terms of my fandom of Liverpool. And I couldn't disrespect it that way, regardless of how heated it gets. And I just thought it was a bit it was very, very bad taste, and it really let the club down. And when I talk about the club, I don't talk about the Glazers. As I said before on another podcast, to me, the club is the ground, the staff, the coaching staff, the players, and the fans. That to me is the club. Who sits at a board level is a very different thing. We'll come back to you now in a minute. Wayne, obviously, you were hyped up for today. You were hoping that your club was going to get the right result out of our match and that you would be crowned Premier League champions, and then you could move on and fully focus on the Champions League coming up. That's kind of throwing a spanner in the works at this stage. You're going to have to wait. There's no doubt you're going to be champions, so try not to be too disappointed. But I just think it's like a side issue to it, if you like. And the timing of it, I think, was motivated as well, if you like. What was your thinking on it?
Well, like, obviously looking at the scenes today, well, I don't know, like I said, you've off air, I was actually a bit torn. Part of me kind of understands or sympathises with, they're not happy with how the club is run, the fans, but how they went about it, like you said, breaking into the holy ground to them, that's their holy ground. They broke in. I saw pictures today of a steward with a scar on his face, and you think, what is that about, man? Like, what's that going to achieve, if anything? And like you said, it's just going to create more animosity between the owners and the fans as well. Obviously upset as well that obviously we couldn't get crowned champions. Don't know if Liverpool would have done the job now myself, but the way United are playing. But I just think it was way over the top. And like Dano said, Roy Keane, because I was watching, obviously seeing if the game was going to go ahead. Roy Keane and all that, like in the studio, we were making Jamie Carragher and Gay now. They were trying to almost justify it and be like, this is the right kind of carry on we expect from football fans. Well, no, and like as well, if you remember now, and I'm not having a dig here now, but like they said a safety concerns. I remember when City arrived at Liverpool when the title was at, when the title race was on. What did you see the welcome in City got off the Liverpool fans? You could, and they're saying this is to do with safety concerns. Bit of a joke, really. Yeah,
I sort of smiled. Darren, you might take up this one. I had Roy Keane and Graham Souness on Sky Sports having a conversation about, sure, a few things getting thrown around. Sure, it's not a big deal. We've played matches where bottles have been thrown on the pitch. And I'm thinking, but that wasn't right either. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that situation doesn't make this situation right. You know what I mean? This is an empty stadium. We're in a COVID thing. And I know the UK have had a huge vaccination program and they're starting to relax on the rules and stuff like that. But COVID is still there. It's not gone. They're talking as if it's gone because they're back in bars and, they're testing nightclubs and, the fans are coming. Fans are being tested at like the cup game and all that kind of thing. Wake up. You guys not so long ago were spreading a variant. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's get real here, I mean, obviously, Darren, what was obviously the right to protest is obviously very important. And it's not an issue. But in these times, I think, where the structures of clubs have very much become big business, I don't even know what even a protest achieves these days.
No, not me. I don't either. No, I have to be honest with you. Obviously, we had the incident during the week with Ed Woodward as well, where the house came under attack for the second time, because this happened, last year as well.
Yeah.
Which again isn't something you can condone as a United fan, as a football fan, or as a person. As a human being, that bloke has a right to go into his house at night and feel like he's going to put his kids to bed and he's going to be safe and they're going to be safe. And there's going to be no asshole trying to climb over a fucking wall. Again, sorry about the language, to jump on that and try and, harm him. He has to do that job. That's a poison chalice, that job he has. The ownership of the club for me is a poison chalice as well, because you can't appease fans at times. It doesn't matter what you do. You look at if we look probably, at Abramovich and at City, at Mansour at City, like the two lads are two unbelievable owners. They really, really are. But they don't walk down the street. You don't pick them up off the street. That's, they've invested in the club, but there's so few of them around. And you've got to be so lucky. Other than that, football clubs are businesses. They're there to run as a business. They're multi-million and billion-dollar corporations, and you don't, you've got to run it like a business. So if the Glazers put somebody like Ed Woodward in charge, and that's his job to do, he has to be given a little bit of space to do that, and he has to be given a little bit of respect to do it as well. He's an official of Manchester United Football Club. I'm not a big fan of his, but I certainly wouldn't be going to attack his house. I certainly wouldn't be condoning anyone attacking his house, be it United fans or anyone else. You know what I mean?
I think the problem with Ed Woodward, with the fans, is what they fail to understand is, in terms of a commercial marketing director, he is outstanding and second to none in terms of the money he generates, as you spoke about earlier, all the different branding and the selling. United are the kings of that without a shadow of a doubt. It's where he kind of stepped over into this kind of director of football kind of thing, which is not really his job. And we kind of don't really know from the outside whether it was him who drove it or whether he sort of was put in that position. You know what I mean?
It's also a job he hasn't done for the last 3 years. Richard Arnold has bought and sold our players for the last 3 years. And most United fans don't know that. Yeah. They're still saying, Woodward wouldn't sign the check for X, Y, or Z. He doesn't sign the checks for players. It's not his gig. He's back doing, he's vice CEO of the club, and he's back trying to make deals to get funds in. Arnold spends the funds. So, even if United fans don't know that, we're really struggling. Do you know what I mean?
Tell us this. The other thing that shocked me the other day was the United fans going into Carrington. Why, as a fan, would you go to disrupt or upset a training ground and a training session, you know what I mean, for your players. I mean, if we discussed the European Super League, we said it wasn't about the players, it wasn't about the managers, it was all about the boardroom. So what are these guys rocking up to Carrington for? I mean, Joe Glazer isn't hanging out at Carrington. You know what I mean? Like, this is a team that's was trying to get prepared and got a great result against Roma, no doubt about it. But, you know, it could have disrupted preparation and it could have gone the other way really sour, really quick. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't understand that either. Like, it was just such a weird move to go to the training ground.
Well, how far do they take it? So let's just say they get into the training ground like they did, and maybe they get a little bit further. And maybe some of the players, you know, take exception to that. And they're like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Why are you in our faces? We're trying to prepare for a game. Are fans going to start being confrontational with their own players then? Because the players want to get on and do their jobs and get results on the pitch for the fans. Like, there has to be logic to things. And if stuff isn't logical, you know, there's no real point in doing it. Breaking into your own ground is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. You've got to be a complete knuckle dragger to do anything like that, right? And breaking into or trying to gain access to your own training ground. You know, these are publicity stunts. But is Joe Glazer going to pay the blindest bit of attention? Not a fiddle.
You're not, like, I think what this is very endemic, or what this is telling is, you know, all about, like, what exactly is it about the Glazers that they don't know? I think ultimately it's down to success on the pitch and the levels United have reached before. The fans are ultimately upset that they're not at the levels they want. And like, rightfully so, a club of their size, they want to be achieving greatness and success, you know, winning the league. And it's been a while, and I think that's played a big part into this as well. Well, at the same, like on that note, United are second in the Premier League. They've got pretty much in the Europa League finally, you know, bar some miracle Roma. You know, they're on a gradual peak. United have, if you watch the peak of United's success, they're getting there. You know, whether people, you know, we take the piss, you know, as rival fans of Ollie being a geography teacher or whatever. But he's doing it on the pitch. He's letting the football talk for itself. And like the way they played the other day against Roma, as a football fan, that was brilliant. That was unreal, the second half of that game. You know, it was mad. And I think, you know, fans just want that success back. And that's what this is really all about, you know.
Liverpool went, you know, 30 years without winning a league title. But did they go in on the owners over it? You know, not really, because they knew, you know what I mean, it wasn't up to the owners. Yeah, it is to a degree. But you have a team on the pitch as well. You have management. It's so much more competitive now to win a league than ever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you've got big teams spending big money. You look at that top six, you've got Arsenal, maybe Spurs, Chelsea, you got Liverpool, you've got City, United, Leicester, Everton, Villa. On any given day, any of those teams in that league can turn anyone else over. We look earlier in the season, there was some absolute crazy results. We seen City get thumped. We seen Liverpool get thumped. We seen United get thumped, you know, by teams who now maybe aren't doing as well. And people are forgetting that. That league is very, very competitive. It only takes, you know, a couple of guys to have a really, really good game. And all of a sudden, the scoreline looks way different than it should. You know, prime example is Thursday night. United played well to get 6-2, obviously was brilliant. But we weren't amazing. You know what I mean? Like, there was as much to do with them having a horrific sub-keeper as anything. He coughed up 2 of the goals. Like, do you know what I mean? So if we walk out even 4-2, you're still happy. But we haven't, you know, set the world alight. But we are 100% going in the right direction. And you can see that progressively we're a much better team. If we can keep certain players there, you know, I know the whole Pogba thing is on the table at the minute. We'd be absolutely mental to sell Pogba at the minute because he's playing really, really good football for United. And he's also given Fernandes an outlet as well. Because at times when Pogba wasn't in the team, Bruno was looking and going, who else would give the ball to? You know, whereas now he looks and he goes, I know I can give it to him because he can do what I can do, and vice versa. And the two lads look like they trust each other out there. Add in another couple of additions, maybe a right winger, a striker, and a centre back. All of a sudden, we're really, really in the shake up next season. And are you going to have protests on the final day of the season if we're lifting a trophy? Not on your Nelly, are we? Because everything is forgotten once the trophy on the table, lads.
That's the point I was going to make there, that like if United were 3 points off City right now, would a protest have happened today? No. Not on your Nelly, not a chance. Like, you know what I mean? And if United won the league last year and they won the Champions League the year before, like what Liverpool did, would there be protests? No. You know what I mean? This is kind of like, it's a fall from grace that has happened that United fans should have expected when Fergie left. There's no doubt about it. What that man brought to the club is insurmountable, without a shadow of a doubt. He'll probably go down in history as the greatest manager ever, without a shadow of a doubt, and has. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's tough when that happens and that changes. And it takes an awful long time. I remember when Kenny left Liverpool, it took us 30 years. You know what I mean? Like 30 years of being not even second fiddle, being fourth and fifth fiddle at times, signing players that no one ever wanted, you know, players that should never walk through the Shankly gates, you know what I mean? Players that should have never stepped onto that pitch. And time and time and time again, we did it. So I understand the frustration of fans. I understand, you know, so used to success, year after year after year after year, silverware, silverware, silverware. You know, but I sometimes try to dissect down the hatred and the bitterness within the fan base in terms of what they want. The 50+1 is not going to happen. And anyone who thinks that's going to happen or leading the campaign or think that the British government can step in and make something like that happen, you need to go back and you need to look at legislation and cop on. For all intents and purposes, that business is not even an English business. So there's no local legislation that can deal with that. So forget about it. But be careful what you want. I mean, like, does anyone think if Daniel Ike goes in as Spotify owner, goes in and takes over Arsenal, is he not going to expect a 5% return on his investment? And forget about like Vieira and Bergkamp and Henry and all those people that you want to put in front of you like a shower curtain. That's all well and good. That's great to have them in there who fundamentally understand Arsenal Football Club. But at the end of the year, he's going to sit at that table. He hasn't earned 67 billion from Spotify by not treading on some people at some stage. It happens without a shadow of a doubt, or you don't reach that level. And he'll go in there and he'll expect just as much money back, if not more, no different than the likes of Kroenke. He might invest a bit more money initially. He might have more money put aside for development and infrastructure and players and all that kind of stuff, naturally like any new owner does. And it will be the same position in United. And we talk about the ESL and it being non-competitive and all this kind of thing and all. What's going to happen to the Premier League if all these owners leave and we get in more oil money, or we get in more Russian money, or we get in more Chinese money, and these things come in, these big multi-billionaire owners. And let's suppose all those 6 clubs end up, say, to the level of City, where they nearly have 2 11s that are able to play week in, week out. How uncompetitive and how boring is the league going to become? Because you're going to have 14 other teams, or whatever it is, and they're not going to have a look in. Not a chance in any way, shape, form, or fashion, which is primarily what the ESL was going to deliver.
I spoke about this recently, actually, on another podcast. And you know, to be honest with you, the Premier League needs to look at something like the salary cap for my money. Not an individual salary cap, but a salary cap as a club to try and make the league more competitive across the board. And to stop teams like United, like City, like Chelsea, stockpiling footballers. Because at the minute, that's what's happening. You know, I looked at the City bench yesterday. They obviously put their second string out yesterday. You look at the City bench and you're going, how is anyone going to get a game of ball around here? You know what I mean? How are young kids at City going to get into that team? We used to have the 3-player rule, outside of the European. If you're outside of Europe, I need a 3. I think we need to look at the likes of a salary cap. Yes, Johnny can make 400 grand a week, but you have to factor that in. And you have to factor in that then for him to make 400 grand a week, someone else can only make 100, and everybody gets the same amount of money to spend. So the talent in the league then is shared out. And rather than having, likes of City with Stones, Diaz, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Sterling sitting on a bench, you're like, what is this about? Look at all the teams that played yesterday. How many of them teams would have had all 5 of them players in them? Every one of them, and every one of them playing today. Do you know what I mean? And we got robbed of that because they have a pool of 25 players maybe that are all at a very similar level, and you can swap and change against the lower league teams. The salary cap for me would work really, really well in the Premier League. You've got 2 or 3 franchise players at your club, and after that, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, the rest of them are all just plebs. You know, you get 3 or 4 really top ballers, and then they have to fit into your team. You know what I mean? So like they do in the Americans. Say again, man.
Sorry, you were going to say it. I shouldn't have interrupted.
Like they do in America. You know, and that's what they do. They do it in the NBA. They do it in the NFL. You've got cap space. You can move someone around. You get a lot more value with your trades and stuff like that as well. And then maybe even in years to come, I know football fans hate anything that changes, but maybe in years to come, we end up with a draft where we draft players from academies, you know, and if you're not getting, there's the lad Florian Balogun at Arsenal. He wanted a certain amount of money to sign on the contract, and he wasn't going to do it. Now it looks like he's going to sign on with Arsenal, or he may have already done it. But there was 10 other clubs that were interested in that kid. He's a big performer, this kid. So if Arsenal don't give him the money and don't have the space to allow him into their squad, that's fine. But let him go and get a game at Aston Villa. Let him go and play football. And let's not be robbed of talent because billionaire owners are stockpiling lads on the bleeding bench, because that isn't football.
I suppose the difficulty with that is if you develop a system like that. I mean, we've seen the failings of financial fair play, you know, and we've seen that there's like selective accounting around ideas like salary caps and stuff like that. You know what I mean? What's the stop? Let's say City as an example, and no disrespect to City, right? Champions elect, basically, you know. But what's the stop City turning around and saying to Kevin De Bruyne, right, we're going to give you 200 grand a week, right? But here's a Lamborghini, or here's this, or
wasn't there something with Roberto Mancini where they could only pay him so much money because of financial fair play or whatever? So they opened up a company in like Qatar or something as a sports consultancy, and he magically got a job there as a sport consultant and X, Y, hundreds of thousands.
That's what I mean. The reality of managing that, because first of all, the idea isn't bad, Darren, but the problem in putting that in practice, you're probably not going to get a Roman Abramovich coming into Chelsea. Then you're not going to get a Mansour coming into City, because that's not what they're interested in. What they're interested in is success. They don't really care about the cost. To them, it's like their way of playing billionaires football manager and having the crack. You know what I mean? That's the way they do it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's no doubt they're shrewd in business and they want a return and they want success without a shadow of a doubt. But they're not going to sit there and be told, listen, you can only have 3 marquee players and the rest are all not bang average. You know what I mean? But the rest are like at this level. But the game is spiraling out of control in terms of financial wealth and stuff like that. It's an absolute, like, we've seen it already. We did a show already on Erling Haaland. It is disgusting. It's disgusting. And like, you'd never really normally be against a player earning a living or earning that type of, you know, earning money, you know what I mean? But when it gets to that point in the world that we live in now, it's absolutely disgusting. This guy is nearly earning in a week the economy of a small country, you know what I mean? It's crazy, and it's unacceptable. And like he was told, and there was bad press, you know what I mean? And Raiola went back into his little shell and went hiding for a few weeks because he got clipped by Barcelona with the rubbish that he said to them. And I just think it's just time, like, you know, it's, as we've said before, it's really time for football to really look at itself. But I just wonder how much of the protest, you know, there's obviously anger has been bubbling in the United fan base for years. There's no doubt about it, at least since Fergie went. Because Fergie obviously had a way through success and through management and how good he was with the press and how good he spoke about the club and tampering down that sort of bubbling stuff. And success, of course, always brings a smile, not anger. So I just don't know. I'm just wondering how much of it is related to success and disappointment at the level at which the club has fallen. And as you said, it is starting to pick back up again. They are starting to make the right moves. They are players that are starting to perform. I mean, listen, we were only 18 months ago where fans were screaming at Paul Pogba to get out of the club. They had a row with him on the last day of the season, remember? He took his jersey off. They wanted to throw the fucking jersey at him and everything and all. They were about to jump the barrier at one stage. No, man. Now he's the king again. You know what I mean? So some minds are very, very short-lived, you know? Yeah,
and football fans in general, for me, and I have an issue with this. I'm involved in a United forum, you know? And just the fickleness of fans. We had to do something recently on the forum we're on. And what we did was we actually had to close the forum for 30 minutes before the game, and 30 minutes after. Because for 2.5 hours, you were getting absolute shite put up every couple of minutes when somebody tried to put a ball through and didn't make it, or a ball went out of play. And then you've guys shouting, oh, he's a cunt, oh, he's shite, oh, he should never pull on the jersey. You don't judge a player on what he's done in 15 minutes, lads. You know what I mean? It takes an awful long time to judge a player. Even, you're talking about Donny at United, right? Fellas are judging Donny and they're saying, not a United player, hasn't been given the time, should be out the door, blah, 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 blah. Let's not forget, a couple of years ago, we brought Fred in. Now, I know United fans are polarised with Fred. I love the kid. I think he's a great young fella. He absolutely breaks himself out on a Saturday and Sunday for United. He'll run through walls. Is he the most talented footballer in the world? No, he's not. But you can't have 11 really, really talented footballers and fellas that don't want to do the donkey work. He's a water carrier at United. And in his first season, he couldn't get a sniff. But this year and last year, he was one of the first names on the team sheet. Every week, you look when we have big games, Fred, he might let McTominay sit. He might let Pogba sit. He might let, Greenwood or Rashford sit. You'll have Fred and Bruno in every single team if he can, Solskjaer, along with Maguire. They're his three core down the spine of that team, and it wasn't too long ago that United fans were saying, get him out there, he can't kick. And then I still know there's United fans saying the same thing, but they're not understanding the job he does for the team. Like, you can't have 30 fellas trying to score 30 goals a season. It doesn't work. We need fellas to play in different positions, and everyone in that team has a job. And his job is to win the ball back, and it's to try and set a bit of tempo. It's not to have 15 assists and 20 goals in a season. Do you know what I mean? It's just fans just kill it sometimes. I really do.
I often use the example when I talk about players like that, and I'm not comparing them in any way, but I talk about a player like Claude Makelele, who was absolutely sensational and world class at Chelsea, and what a player he was. And I know the Chelsea fan base obviously loved him without a shadow of a doubt, but no one really understood his role until he was gone. And it was amazing, wasn't it? And I see the same thing with Fernandinho at City.
Yeah.
And I seen the same thing with Yaya Toure at City. No one really understands at times the impact that these players make, because we often say that when a player has a really good match, he's not mentioned as much. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be that superstar, that pings that 30-yarder into the top corner like a Pogba or a Bruno or whatever it is. It's the guy who does the day-to-day, week-to-week, grinding out groundwork that allows those players to express themselves. Yeah. And often until they're gone, you don't realise the job they did. I seen Donny van de Beek today, and we all have a bit of banter about him because we're football fans and it's a bit of crack. I seen him being described today, and this wasn't like a Twitter post around like this. This was a recognised media post. And he was described as a midfield flop. And I turned around and I said, he hasn't even kicked the ball for United. What are you talking about? This is a guy who joined United on the back of a semi-final of a Champions League with Ajax. And I'm thinking, this guy is a midfield flop. He's literally not kicked the ball for United nearly all season. And I was just going, how stupid are the media at times when they're looking at these things without looking at them properly?
Yeah, 100%.
It's just crazy.
Absolutely 100%. The best example in that league for me is the boy Wilfred Ndidi at Leicester.
Yeah.
When he plays, Leicester play. When he doesn't play, Leicester don't play. They're nowhere near top four without that young fella. But did he score 15 goals or have 20 assists this season? No. But he has a job to do. And football fans don't like players like that. Like Makelele. I think Makelele, for me, probably got, quite a lot of plaudits for a guy who did that role. But so many have come after him that haven't. And that's to do with fans not understanding stuff.
Yeah.
But
I think outside of the Chelsea fan base, Claude Makelele got a lot of plaudits after the fact. It was after his career had moved on. He was an exceptional player, you know what I mean? You see it today even with your man Yves Bissouma at Brighton. Outstanding player. You know what I mean? And it's only in the last 4 or 5 weeks anyone was talking about him, because I think the day he put in a shift, I think he was playing United, was it, or City? He had a great game. And everyone's going, oh, this is Bissouma, lad. You know what I mean? He's been outstanding all season. You know what I mean? This is not new.
Not just the one good game you've seen him have.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the protest today, Wayne, you can take this first as a let's say, a neutral on the episode. What comes out of this today? Yeah, I mean, the match is being postponed, so it's on hold, and Hughes obviously winning the league is on hold. But what should happen now? I mean, should there be ramifications for this? Should something happen? Is this just something that should be slid? There's COVID restrictions. There's guidelines. There's trespassing. Like all these things come into play. What should happen now?
I mean, let's be real. Like, should the players be putting all these players, all the United players, for example, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they're all playing, putting their work in, week out. So should they get like a points deduction or a penalty for this? Not a hope. Like, not a hope. I don't think the game. It's tough because part of me does kind of think, should the game just be cancelled? Like, because at the end of the day, Liverpool showed up. They're the away team. They've travelled, and because of the United fan base, it's been stopped. Now there should be no fans in the stadium, anyways. And I think, if I'm really honest, I think maybe like just postpone the game and just move on. I don't know personally what could you do? Find a Man United fan group or whatever. At the end of the day, the fans obviously don't represent the club exactly. Like as you know yourself, Noel. Some fans will go out and don't always hold the club's best interests, if you know what I mean, at heart. So does the club get punished for the actions of the fans? I can't, but I feel fairly, for example, the game be given to Liverpool today, 3 points even. I don't think that's exactly fair now,
But I suppose we would look, when we spoke about the ESL last week and the week before, we spoke about the fact that, like, this was all about the owners. The owners should be punished. This is not about the fans or the club or the coaches or the players. But today was all about the fans. I mean, you can't hide behind this. You can talk about a protest and, a peaceful protest to make your point. You want the owners gone, and you go and you do that. You don't climb all over your stadium. You don't burst in through a gate. You don't attack stewards. You don't upend cars. Yep. You don't throw flares around. You don't try and wreck elements of your ground. And I'm not saying, like, there was thousands and thousands of fans there who meant well today, and it was a peaceful protest, and it did kick off. But you can't make this sound either like it was 4 or 5, fans that were out there causing a little bit of a riot. I mean, hundreds of fans ran into that ground today. You know what I mean? And we seen pictures of stewards holding gates open. You know what I mean? So, like, there's a fine line. Like, where do you go with this? You know what I mean? Like, is it okay then that, like, next week if Liverpool are playing at home, can the fans just rock up to the stadium, wreck the stadium, kick the gates in, burst in the door and start causing mayhem and call that game off till John Henry is gone? Can Arsenal turn around next week, rock up to the Emirates, wreck it, kick the doors in, walk in till Stan Kroenke's gone? How does this can't just get brushed under the carpet and be forgotten about and go, this is all grand, because otherwise you're going to cause anarchy within football in the UK.
Yeah, but where does the responsibility lie, Noel? Is it down to the club to punish them, the league, the police? Is this a matter for the police? Simple as you're trespassing, you're causing damage, off you go in the paddy wagon. Like, so who's the one who oversees this? Did the club put ramifications against the fans, ban them from games, whatever it may be? Like, where do you go? Where's the line? What's the appropriate?
Here's the line at a very basic level, right? Let's talk about it in relation to what we've all gone through for the last year in terms of COVID. People have died, we've lost people, pandemic, we've all been sitting at home, locked up, all this kind of thing, right? Any player in the Premiership so far that has broken COVID restrictions, right, has automatically nearly been dropped from his team and has been fined heavily.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're going to end up with ramifications across the board. First of all, I think United should make sure that if they can get faces and names to anybody that set foot in that stadium today, they'll never set foot in that stadium again. That's where that would be my starting point. Secondly, from the law's point of view and from the police point of view, again, that's trespassing. So anybody that walked in there, anyone that bolted through a gate, anyone that ripped up a seat, anyone that threw a camera stand, any of that, boom, here's your court date, lads, right? You'll be dealt with in court as well. But, and this is where I probably differ slightly from Wayne, there's got to be a deterrent there to stop, as you said, this anarchy kicking off across the football world and across English football. I don't necessarily think you take points that the club has earned, because, again, you're doing over the coach, you're doing over the players and stuff like that for points that they've actually earned. See today's points. See those 3 points that were on offer today. I would have absolutely no problem if the Premier League said in the morning, we're giving Liverpool a 3-0 win. They're going to take the points and you're going to drop 3 goals in the goal difference. I would be fine for that to happen. And the only reason I'd be fine for that to happen is it sets a tone and it sets a benchmark. And it says, if you do, any of this absolute bullshit again, be it United fans, be it Arsenal fans, be it any fans across this country, know before it kicks off that your team is in danger of, if that match gets called off, that boom, those points are gone. You could be a team that are on the verge of relegation. You could be on a team that's on the verge of a Champions League spot. Doesn't matter. You're all dealt with the exact same way. And 3 points that were on the table today go to Liverpool and United end up on -3 on the goal difference. I would be fine with that to set a precedent, to be honest with you.
I mean, if you think about it, if it was a normal match day and the fans were in the ground and those fans invaded the pitch, I mean, the FA and the Premier League have rules for bringing the game into disrepute. And there's ramifications for that happening. Today, the game was brought into disrepute. And it doesn't matter what way you look at it. I mean, you could talk about it. We're not happy with the owners. Listen, at the end of the day, the fans are nearly like employees of the club. Let's be honest. You pay your money in for a service that you get back. So you're kind of nearly like an employee. Because if fans are not there, we know football is nothing without fans. And we chime that phrase all the time, but it's true. But like,
use that logic, Niall, would you not be an employer? If you're the one paying in, are you not the employer to these people?
But what?
No, you're a customer.
Yeah,
you're a customer.
Absolutely.
But customers can be refused entry. If I want to walk into Niall's shop and I want to buy a T-shirt, I have to abide by a certain set of rules and regulations. Like, I have to be able to walk into the shop and not act like an absolute bleeding hoodlum. Because if I do, Niall's going to barrel me out the door and I'm not going to get to buy that T-shirt I want. And it's tough shit for me.
It's like. I mean, look. Let's take an example. Like thousands, Tesco's as an example, employ thousands upon thousands of people, right? If you're not happy with your contract at Tesco's, what do? You've got 2 choices. You either suck it up and you stay there, or you leave and you get a new job. That's the simple fact that you have. You can't just walk into Tesco's and start wrecking the place because you're not happy with your contract. And at the end of the day, between the Glazers and United, there's kind of an unwritten contract between the club and the fans in terms of the ownership of the club. They need you as much as you need them. There's no shadow, without a shadow of a doubt. So you can't just take it in your own hands, to go in and just go like this. And then, you listen to punditry going, was it really that bad? What do you mean, was it really that bad? We this is very raw at the moment. We don't even know what's happened. We're on this podcast now here chatting. People could have gotten seriously injured today and we don't even know about it. We won't know probably till 9 or 10 o'clock tonight the full ramifications of what happened today. We heard there was cars being turned over at hotels. We heard that lads were on a proper rampage without a shadow of a doubt. And like, you can't just allow that to happen. You can't allow,
No, it's absolute disgrace, man. Turning cars over, causing damage and all. But like you said, on a human level, that's a disgrace. Regardless of the football, just doing it anyways is a bloody disgrace.
Yeah.
And then and I suppose you're dead right, dragging the club into it as well as fans or representatives of the club. Look what you've done. You've dragged United's name into the dirt for, and put them all over the news, for the wrong reasons.
And this is being seen worldwide. This is a slur on the club being seen worldwide. And if the fan base thinks they can come on and start saying, oh, we want our owners out and that's the overriding thing. It's not the overriding thing. You've let your club down today. You've showed up for a peaceful process that wasn't peaceful and got out of hand.
Yeah.
And you took advantage of an opportunity that you shouldn't have taken advantage of. I mean, what was going through the head of those fans today running through the gates onto the pitch? What was going through their head? What did they think was going to happen? Like, the Glazers aren't even there. They're probably sitting on a beach somewhere sunning themselves. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous.
Sipping cocktails in Tampa. They, anything that was going to go on there today, obviously it impacts. But does it impact Joe Glazer sitting in his bleeding his beachfront home worth 15 bleeding million in the States? Not a chance. Will he sleep like a baby tonight? You bet you will. So if you're trying to hurt owners, There's different ways to do it. Let's not sell any season tickets. No fan buy them. Don't buy any jerseys. Don't subscribe to the channel. If you want to hurt owners, you hurt their pocket. Because as we said, they're in this for money. So you can hurt owners, but the problem is, and I can guarantee you this will happen, United release 3 jerseys in the summer. Their home jersey, their away jersey, and their alternate. And lads will get one whiff of it, and they'll be out the door to get these jerseys as quick as you can say shit off a shovel. But that's the time when fans need to unite. That's when fathers need to say to their 10-year-old sons, listen, kid, I like the jersey too, but this is for the greater good of our club, and this is to get rid of these fat yanks. So what we're going to do is we're going to park the jersey. There's a tracksuit for you instead, a Nike one, but we don't buy ant with that badge on it until these boys are out of our club, and you hit them that way.
You have to nearly associate. You nearly have to open up your own wallet and have a look at it and get the greater understanding that when you take that money out of that wallet, you're putting it into Joe Glazer's wallet. And that's what you have to understand. So what United have to do, I believe anyway, if they really want a change of ownership, and it's going to be tough as well, because what it is in order to get these guys out, you're nearly going to have to hurt your club in some respects, you know what I mean? Because obviously if they start hurting financially, they're not going to make as much money available for transfers, blah, 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 blah. So it all has a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
But the only way that you get billionaires out of a club is by stop them being billionaires.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing they can do. And I think what they're going to have to do is when the new season comes around and fans are allowed back in, that stadium needs to look the way it looked today. And if
100%.
if it doesn't, well, then they're all talking bullshit. It's just a waste of time. It's absolute crap, because when football comes back, everyone's going to be going, great, football's back. Can't wait to get back to matches. Boom, 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 boom. Then stop moaning about your owner, because every time you sit in a seat, you're paying your owner.
Here's the other problem as well. Yeah, if you discard, let's just say the number was 5,000 people at that protest today. If you discard that 5,000 from next season, yeah, you'll still have 79,000 Old Trafford.
Yep.
Because we're a big brand. We're a global brand. I've been to Old Trafford in the summertime when there was no football on. The only thing open was the mega store and the museum tour and the stadium tour. Yeah. And the buses and buses and buses of people pulling up outside of it. Shinji Kaga was playing for United at one stage, and all the Asian lads getting off buses, they were buying this authentic United jersey with the special Kagawa writing on the back of it. They were 150 quid a pop, and there was about 1,000 lads wearing it that were after walking out the door of the thing. United are big, big business, and the only way to do this is to hit them in their pocket, And here's the other thing, and this is what people forget. As you say, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. Because if the Glazers walk out that door and they decide to put the club up for sale, they're talking about 4 billion, right? I don't believe there's a man, woman, child, or beast on this earth, that has 4 billion that hasn't fucked someone off along the way and hasn't got skeletons in their closet that's going to come out to bite them when they end up at that board table. That is 100% fact.
Yeah, well, I think no matter what owner you have there, I mean, they're all still going to sit around the table and go, does this Erling Haaland deal look reasonable from a business point of view? Does this Jadon Sancho look reasonable from a business point of view? I mean, even the wealth that's at Chelsea, even the wealth that's at Man City, they still look at these players and go, is this the right thing to be doing? They don't just I know Roman went out last summer and he bought a bunch of players, but that was on the back of a ban and stuff like that. So in theory, it was
2 years' money,
2 or 3 windows. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of different. But I mean, he still looked at Werner, who was unbelievable. He looked at Havertz, who was unbelievable. Pulisic, unbelievable. Ziyech, unbelievable. They're all unbelievable players. They're not just going out willy-nilly. They're looking at these things. These all have directors of footballs and scouting systems. They're not just going out and buying the next, fancy name that crops up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's just, they're looking and they're trying to see what's right. And they're obviously, Man City worked very closely with Pep Guardiola. You know what I mean? Chelsea worked very closely with Tuchel. Maybe, I don't know, with Lampard and stuff like that, but definitely with Tuchel. There's not a player going in there just for the sake of it unless Tuchel wants it, because otherwise Tuchel will just walk. Pep is the same. Pep's not going to be overridden or he'll just walk if he's undermined. You know what I mean? So, they have to be run in a certain type of way. But again, I go back to the Spotify example. Daniel, I've been an Arsenal fan all my life. That's great. And I have this Teflon shower curtain of the 3 boys who were the Invincibles and unbelievable players and all that. And they understand the history and the culture of Arsenal. But then behind that, he's still going to sit down one day with paper and say, are we making any money here, lads? Or what's the story? It's all well and good being a fan, but this is $4 billion. You know what I mean? It's just...
Do you go and make that type of money that he's made at Spotify to absolutely piss it down at dark hole at Arsenal for possibly a trophy or two? But again, with City, United, Chelsea, in domestic clubs, Liverpool, and then you're talking about the Reals and the Barças and the Bayerns for European football, you may not even get a trophy out of it. It's becoming so much more difficult to even pick up an FA Cup, let alone anything else. So there's no guarantee with that. United have lumped massive money on it for the last few years. And we're only now getting to the point where with moving different pieces around on the board, it's starting to look like we're getting somewhere. Everything takes time. Money can't buy you success in football. City, when the boys came in at City, they didn't get it immediately. Yes, they invested in the team, but they still had to get the right managers in. They still had to get the right infrastructure in the club. And as Gary Neville will tell you, he said, if you go anywhere near that Etihad Stadium, he said the regeneration they've done around that area, he said, is absolutely amazing. He says, if only other owners in the country were like that. Because I know myself, I go to United. I'm a season ticket holder at Old Trafford. And, after Old Trafford, there's nothing there. Same at Liverpool. There's nothing there. The places are shitholes, basically. And but City have put an awful lot of money into the community around them, into the businesses around them. That's the type of owner you're looking for. Yeah, they've got deep pockets, but, it is important that they care about the club as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's getting that balance. United are talking about, if we do end up getting rid of the Glazers, who comes in? Again, I spoke about this with somebody else. You're probably talking about the Arabs. Yeah. Now, again, for me, and I will be honest about this because I've already said this on another podcast. So I don't want someone saying to me, "Oh, well, you said something different." If I thought we could bring in the Arabs tomorrow and it would mean success, I'd bring them in. And someone says, "Well, what about their human rights? I'm a football fan. I don't give a fuck." And that's fact. If they're stoning people in their own country, I really don't give a shit if after 30 fucking 8 league games, we get to stand on that podium and lift that trophy above our heads. And that's God's honest truth. And may I be struck down if someone's telling me, that's not very nice. I'm a football fan. I'm not here for nice.
Well, I think go ahead, Wayne. No, go ahead, go on.
I was just going to say, as a City fan, we won the football lottery. I've said this to you before on the show. We won the football lottery. I didn't get to pick that. We'd have owners from the Arab owners, about human rights issues in their own country. I as a fan had no choice in that. Now, they didn't come and write us all letters. They know, which is like, what do you think of this? These new fellas want to buy us. They just came and got us, And any football fan would be lying. Do you know, our success has almost been tainted by other fans. It's jealousy, if I'm honest, because saying, "Oh, money this." United have been spending money for years. Alex Ferguson, how many times he broke the British transfer record? How many times did he buy players that way over the odds at the time? God, money has been in football for years. And people saying, "Oh, City and Chelsea have done this." No. City, all that happened is football grew in a way, and naturally from the way money was being spent, that it attracted owners like this who could dump money and could use it as advertisement vessels or whatever. Because then ultimately, that's all Manchester City was to these guys, was they were going to create a brand where they could advertise their Etihad and the Dubai and all this stuff. That's all it was, to them. We were just an advertisement vessel. And look at the City Football Group now. We've how many football clubs are part of it, All 12 or 13 clubs around the world. Money is in football, and there's nothing we can do to change it. At the moment, anyways. Does it need to change? Probably. Even Kevin De Bruyne's new contract, he's on 400 grand a week. What do you need nearly 2 million quid a month for?
Yeah. I suppose when you look at that, there is, it is outrageous when we look at it on the face of it, but there is branding and all that kind of stuff that goes with these guys who have become superstars. But when you talk, Darren, about human rights, there is a concern there. We obviously do care about it, but we can't really influence it in real terms because we're caught up in the cycle of being a football fan. But you can't really complain about the human rights element of an owner of a club if you're rocking a major sport brand on your product. Because
you've been running sweatshops for years. We're picking up our Jordans and our hoodies and everything we want We've been picking them up for years, and these kids are stuck in a little sweatshop somewhere, getting 50 cents a day, and the boys are rubbing their hands together, and they're shipped into the States, and they disappear from there. And we queue down the road to get certain trainers made by these kids in the middle of nowhere, getting, bleeding potato chips a day to stitch them up. So who are we to say, human rights over there in Saudi's not great? I wouldn't like that fella Bin Salman. Told you. If I thought he was gonna bring in 5 or 6 Champions Leagues, I'd give him a bash of stone of one of my own kids.
Well, I suppose, Jesus, I suppose, you don't mean that. You love your kids. Stop that now.
Maybe the mother-in-law.
But I suppose when an owner comes in, I mean, all this stuff is looked at by the Premier League and the FA or whatever it is when a takeover is happening and stuff like that. And it's at that point really where that kind of stuff should be taken into consideration. And more often than not, it isn't. And I think that's where the real issue lies, insofar as the Premier League has opened itself up to these owners, wide open arms, come on in, revenues are cycling up. Everything is, it's on a treadmill. Everything's going boom, 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 broadcasting rights, all this kind of thing. And I don't think they fully understand the ramifications over a decade or over a generation of what they've kind of opened up the floodgates and started creating. And it's only with a threat of something like the ESL that they go, oh, fuck. What the hell have we done here? You know what I mean? And I think that's the real issue. It's not so much, everyone should care about human rights. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't even matter if you're a football fan. You should care. Okay. You also care about your club. There's no doubt about it. But, you can't talk out of one side of your mouth about human rights and talk out the other side about all the lovely stuff that you want in your life. You have to have a happy medium somewhere in the middle that says, yeah, we do care, but someone has to do their homework before that decision is made to really sort of, get into the bones of understanding it. Like, you can't turn around and go, yeah, that's grand, Joe Blogs, you can take over that company, that's grand, and in the background there's all these human rights stuff and we're not happy with that, but we'll just put that to the side. I mean, we've seen a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's documented with FIFA and with UEFA. We see it. You know what I mean? They've tarnished their name over years with these kind of things. And I think it's set up time now for the football world. It's set up time for the Premier League and the FA to sit up and say, we can't let this happen anymore. We can't let money necessarily be the driver. We can't let things that are so beloved by the public and by the fan base to evolve into these things that are astronomical businesses where they lose the culture and the history and what football is about, which for me, as a coach of an underage team, is grassroots, is fun, is fair play, it's inclusion. It's nothing to do with racism. It's nothing to do with any of that stuff. It encompasses everyone equally and fairly. And that's how football should be run. Not about this wealth or that wealth. It should be competitive. And I say this, Darren, we had a podcast where we did it on the international scene, and we've already spoke about this, that it's crazy the way it's done. And they're now seeing the pain that they've caused and the damage that they've done is coming to the fore now in terms of, I mean, if you take, for example, Chelsea with Roman Abramovich, a guy who I hold in such high regard, even as a Liverpool fan, that man was ostracized by the UK. Yeah. And the amount that man has done for the UK in terms of revenue, economy, the regeneration of Chelsea Football Club, the surrounding area, the charity work, giving up hotels for frontline staff and COVID vaccine centers and blah, 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 blah. And that's only the tip of the iceberg of what we hear about. This is a man who probably does a lot of this stuff and it's not even documented at times. And to the treatment of that man by the UK was nothing short of disgusting. And it's just, you know what I mean? So we have to kind of try and find some sort of a balance, that brings, the essence of football, I call it, the essence of football, players, fans, community, all that stuff, as you said about the city owners regenerating the whole area. That's what I call the essence of football, the regeneration, the plowing of money back into the local economy, building companies up, helping everyone, that you get on a wave when you're successful, and everyone sits on that wave, just not the owners. Everyone should sit on that wave, even down to the lad outside the ground who sells the scarves or sells the pies, or the lad who sells the T-shirts down the road, or whatever it is. Everyone should be on that wave and brought along on that wave, and happy to be brought on that wave. And I think that's the problem that we have at the moment. At the moment, there's a disjoint there, and that disjoint needs to be figured out. Now, how you figure it out, I don't know, because I don't know whether we've opened up the doors on the dam and the water's flooding in, and how we block that up again and reassess it to figure it out. Because maybe your idea, Darren, of, these salary caps and some sort of version of financial fair play and whatever it is, you know what I mean? Everyone wants the Leicesters to do well. Everyone wants to see the Blackburn Rovers win leagues. Everyone wants to see the romances of the cups. Everyone wants to see other teams be successful. You know what I mean? If you're a football fan, no matter who you follow, those are the things that we like. We like the romance of a Leicester City potentially winning a league. We like all those kind of things. It brings us on a journey, and it reminds us of why we fell in love with football as kids, not just our own club. And I think that's the problem. I think for too long in football now, fans and clubs and everything have looked inward too much. Inward. And I think it's now time to look outward. We said after the ASL, it's time for all fans to come together to make football a better place. And I just think today's actions today, I think where it was warranted in terms of a protest to send the message across to say that, we're not accepting this anymore. It's unacceptable. Whether you look at the financials and you agree or disagree, to think that these are guys who are just taking money out of the business and putting nothing back in, which clearly on the face of the financials isn't true. Maybe not at the level that you want or the level that you should expect, but that statement is definitely not true. And I just think it's time to reflect on, why we love football and why is football important to us. And that's all I can say on it. And, I don't know what will come out of today. Certainly, I don't want to see it repeated. If it happened at Liverpool, and I know it wouldn't, because I understand the culture and the history of Liverpool as a city and as a club and everything that we've gone through. And, we've been involved in this kind of thing. You know what I mean? We don't forget Heysel. We don't forget Hillsborough. We don't forget any of these things. We've seen the tragedy of when these kind of things unfold at times. And it's on a knife edge at the moment, and it has to be so careful. So careful. And as you said, Darren, it can't be allowed to spiral out of control. Something has to happen to dampen this down. And the club and the players need to figure, or not the club, but the fans need to figure out if they want change there. Realistically, can they get change and deliver it? But be careful about damaging your club to the point where you can't reverse it. And that's what I would say to them.
Yeah, 100%. You brought up a great point about about carrying your city. If you're a Liverpool fan, carrying that city along in that wave of success. I was in Tato Park today. It's in a really small little village called Curraha in Meath. I walk about 5 minutes down the road for it. And when I went in amongst the stalls today, almost every kid behind the stall was from the local area. And I know that because they've been part of my coaching project over years, But everyone there was within 5 miles of where they lived was that park. So that's what they did. They're dragging everybody into that park, but they're using it to drag the local economy along. There's a shop there now that wasn't there previously. There's a petrol station down the road. There's all these little things. There's the knock-on effect. Because if they bring someone over from, the UK and they need him to be the manager, where is he going to send his kids to school? He's going to send them to the school down the road. Oh, well, then he's not happy because they don't have the infrastructure. So then we have to do a bit there. And you do get that you get that drag effect, and you bring the whole thing along. And that's what's going to happen in football. My thing with football was the reason I fell in love with football. I was born in 1984. So 1990 for me, Italian 90 was really when I kind of fell in love with football, and I was a football fan and an Ireland fan before I was a Man United fan, and we need kids to be falling in love with football for the right reasons now, rather than, the wrong reasons. I don't want my kid's watching that tonight, and you know, the eldest lad is 13, and I don't want him saying, "Jesus, I would have loved to have been there to, you know, give one of them stewards a shove, or, you know, kick that goalpost." Or, you know what I mean? You don't want that. You've got to give them the right kind of values and stuff like that. And that's the only way we're going to move forward with this. But again, money is gripped this game. I think it's laughable that the FA have a fitting proper owners test that you have to get through when you look at some of the degenerates that are allowed on clubs. You know what I mean? Like Mike Ashley's an absolute degenerate. He should have never been allowed by a club ever. And somebody on a little checklist went, "Oh, Mike Ashley, yeah, Mike, you qualify." You know what I mean? Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And we can throw others in with that. But again, if we don't go the fans route, which I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I don't think it's a plausible outcome, you know, you're always going to have some degenerate that owns your bleeding club, because they all had to be a degenerate to get to that point in time.
Yeah, I often say, like, when clubs are successful and things are good, everything spirals along with it and everything is good. And when things go bad, everything spirals with it and everything gets bad. And I think football just has to figure out a way to get back to the grassroots of why we fall in love with football. And today is a stain on that, you know what I mean? Regardless of what United fans think in terms of the message side of sense, without a shadow of a doubt, I was frustrated today. I was looking forward to the game today, you know, because it's such a big game in terms of our push to try and get a top four. It was a huge game for Wayne today because you said he could have been crowned champions. It was a huge game for United today because they could have cemented second place and it'd be done. And you could move on to your European perspective tournaments that really is the chance of delivering silverware, which is what's important in the game in terms of at a club level success, you know. And I just think today, you know, none of that happened. You're sitting here all day, you're excited about the game, the opportunities, tuning in, all that kind of stuff, and it just gets washed away. And then you sort of turn around and go, why? Why do I give up so much time to this? Why do I love it so much? You know what I mean? And then this happens. And you know, we see the good that football can do. When there's tragedy, we can see the good that football does. It comes forward, you know, the outstanding job that football has done over the last 12 months in even being able to deliver us the entertainment that we require. You know what I mean? They've done an outstanding job in terms of a pandemic and keeping the sport ticking over. And I would say a lot of these owners who we talk badly about, keeping the sport ticking over at a loss. And that's what people forget as well. It would be easy to shut shop and go, forget it. If I'm a real cruel business owner, I'm not going to make any money out of this. I don't care about your COVID. That's nothing to do with me. I live in a different world. You know what I mean? Like these owners, these multi-billionaire owners, they're not going to necessarily just suddenly catch COVID. You know what I mean? They're in a different bubble. They're in a different world. They don't live in our world. So, like, they could have easily turned around and gone, right, we're not playing football. That's it, can it for a year because we're not making money. But football is still playing. You know?
Yeah, and I think mentally it did an awful lot for people as well. You know, I personally it really helped me that on Monday night there was a game of ball, on Tuesday night there was a game of ball. They staggered the games with no more 6 or 7 kickoffs at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It was staged throughout the whole week, which meant, what do I do now? The kids have gone to bed, you know. There's a game on. I can watch football, you know, every night of the week. I mean, missus might not like it, but it gets me a bit of headspace that I can live in for a few minutes as well. You know, because I was out of work for 4 months. I lost my father due to COVID, and I had to somehow try and get through every day. And sometimes it was the Man United game on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock that I tuned in. And just that little win, it gave you that little bit of, you know what, I can do another few days of this. I can do another, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that people forget about as well, you know?
Yeah, it always gives you that feeling that one day you're going to be back to a brighter day where you can go to a match again with your son or your daughter and you can have a great day out and you can experience those memories that you create with them on those days. And that's what we kind of live for, you know, because even if United are playing or Liverpool are playing on the Wednesday, you start looking forward from the Monday. You know what I mean? You're getting excited from the Monday and the Tuesday for the match coming up. It's not just necessarily on the day.
Yeah.
But I think in summing up on this episode, I mean, we understand the frustration that's in the United fan base. We understand that there is, you know, the idea of a peaceful protest to get your point across. Not that the Glazers needed to be told that the fan base wanted them out. It's been going on a long time now. But I think when you overstep that mark, I think it's too much, and I think it's a slur on the club, and I think it's also a slur on football in general. You know, and I think that just needs to be taken into consideration at times. And again, I don't know how they're going to deal with it, but as you said, something has to dampen this down, because this can't be shown up at, you know, every single club that was involved in the ESL, which I don't think it would anyway. But I just think it was like, I just think it was too much, to sum it up, you know.
Yeah, we don't want to see coming to a ground near you anytime soon. You know what I mean?
No.
The Glazers have been made a scapegoat for this ESL by United fans. I don't believe for 1 minute, if we hadn't had this ESL, that the protest would have happened today. You know, that's the way we're. Yeah,
no different, as I said earlier, that if you were 3 points off the top today and going into a game against Liverpool to try and draw a level on the league table, there'd be no protest today, you know. And like if there was trophies in the last couple of seasons, you know, like a league or a Champions League or something like that, you wouldn't be seeing protests today. And if the Glazers were spending money and they were bringing in the Jadon Sanchos of this world and stuff like that, there wouldn't be a peep out of people, you know. So, but again, we understand the frustration of not being happy with your owners. As a Liverpool fan, we've had to endure that as well, you know, and we nearly lost our beloved club over it, to be honest, you know. But until next time, lads, always a pleasure. Great to have you on. Again, not dissimilar to the ESL situation. Hate when we have to talk about this stuff and we're not just on talking about a fantastic game of football today and potentially new champions, which we know we can't avoid. They're champions elect anyway. Until next time, Dynamo Podcast Network for YouTube, Anchor for your audio versions of your show, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you pick up your podcasts. We will chat to you next time. And don't forget, tomorrow night we'll have the Monday mashup. You boys will be back on again, no doubt. And we will be talking about this with a bigger audience and a more vocal audience, no doubt. Till next time, lads. Appreciate it. Cheers, boys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, lads.